Alright, so in order to understand how to Superglide wall bounce, we first have to understand wall bounces. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to demonstrate about the height that you want to be aiming at in order to actually get a wall bounce, right? So in order to do that, I'm going to use the varying my jump height using the jump speed. If you're not familiar with that, Shaylee has a great video on it, and I'll link that in the comments or the description. So let's take a look at this, right? So if I use jump speed here, that's a pretty good wall bounce, right? That's what you would expect. But if I don't use jump speed, I go a little bit higher, and you can see that I don't get any height at all, right? If I go a little bit lower on the wall, you can see that I get a little bit of height, but not really much that you would call it a wall bounce, right? So you really want to be like right in the middle of these. And actually, the lower you go, the higher you can get your wall bounce. So here, this is about the maximum height you would expect to get off of a wall bounce. Right, so you can actually do a wall bounce here and just barely make it up here. So let me demonstrate that real quick. So there we go. That's pretty much what you can expect for a maximum height wall bounce. And where I was there was at the very bottom of the zone where you can actually get the high arc there, and you're not like too low where you won't get any height at all like that. So I can demonstrate what happens if you're a little bit high and you won't make it up. That's typically what you're going to get with a slide wall bounce. Slide wall bounce actually put you a little bit high in that zone. So you might think that the wall bounce location is relative to your starting height. So this wall bounce zone that we were talking about, that's relative to your starting height. But it's actually not quite exactly that. So you'll notice that when I jump and go for the wall bounce, right, my lowest point is actually here where I jumped from. And in a lot of cases, that's going to be true. That the lowest point and your starting height are actually the same. But if we come over here, I do a jump off here, and I climb back up a little bit, so that way I'm a little bit above my lowest point, and I can actually wall bounce. That shows us that it's not our starting height, because we started up here, that determines the wall bounce zone. It's actually the lowest point. And of course that wall bounce zone is just a little bit above our lowest point. So you can see here that I can climb up here, I can do a Superglide, and I can try and do a wall bounce, right? But I don't actually get the wall bounce. So what's going wrong here, right? So I'm jumping from here, right? So you might expect that this is our lowest point initially, right? So we'd expect that we want to be a little bit above that in order to hit the wall bounce. But actually that's not the case. The Superglide is actually not the starting point for when you should be thinking about what was my lowest point, right? And where this wall bounce zoning is. It's actually when we start here on the ground. That's actually our lowest point. So you can see there I did it again, I didn't get the wall bounce. So let's come over here to a spot that's a little bit easier to see. So here we have this bin, and we have this wall, right? So if I climb up here and do a Superglide, right, what's my lowest point? My lowest point is actually starting where I started from, all the way down here, before I even did the Superglide. So we would actually expect that our wall bounce zone would be up here instead of relative to our lowest point, starting from up here, right? Because here we would go down, we would fall, then we would be at a new lowest point, and then we would have to climb up a bit and hit the wall bounce. But that's not the case. We climb up, and then we can get the wall bounce right around in this area. So when you're actually practicing this, keep an eye out on what kind of wall bounce you actually get. Because remember, if we're too high, we don't get any height. And if we're too low, we only get a very small amount of height. Not enough to really consider a wall bounce. But of course, if we get the right spot, we actually get a pretty decent wall bounce. So what does that look like with Superglide? So there we were too high, and we didn't get any height, right? So that's how so we know now that we were too high on that wall bounce. You can also go for one that's too low. Let's see if I can do that, right? And we didn't get much height at all. So we know that we should be above that and below that, right? So we can start to get kind of a feel for the area that we're supposed to be aiming at. Right, and there we go, we hit it. So that's how you can kind of figure this out on your own in different situations. And of course, just remember, you can also figure out where you need to be aiming from this minimum height thing. Right, so we're starting here, we'll super glide from here, but we actually want to be a little bit above here when we hit the wall mounts, right? So that's in this area. So that's what you should initially be aiming for, and then you can kind of get more of a feel for it with too high being too low and that kind of stuff.